Ready when you are.
We'll call the K-12 Education Committee to order. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Representative Bolso. Here. Representative McKenzie. Here. Representative Ritchie. Here. Slater. Here. Stevens. Here. Warner. Here. Chairman White. Here. Chairman Hurt. Here. Chairman Haston.
Here.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you for that. And I will remind everybody, especially those that may be outside that are watching, that are trying to get in or coming in, if there's no seats available, unless you're a member, we do ask that you wait outside until we do have seats available inside to sit at. Any personal orders before we begin? I will ask everyone, and she's going to love this, to join me in a round of applause for my legislative assistant. Holly's birthday is today, and just congratulate her on her birthday and for staying with us so late on a Wednesday, or on a Tuesday, sorry. She loves that kind of stuff. All right. We have a couple of items I want to go through that have been taken off notice or rolled on the calendar. So members, we'll go through that real quick to get everybody up to speed. Item number 1, House Bill 670 is off notice. Item number 2, House Bill 741 by Representative Mitchell. Bo knows rolls. He's rolling it 2 weeks. We are going then to item number 4, House Bill 1405. It is off notice. And item number 8, House Bill 1699 is rolled 1 week. And I believe that gets us up to speed. That brings us back to item number 3, House Bill 1191 by Chairman Williams. Properly motioned. Chairman Williams, you are recognized, and I do believe you have an amendment with this. Is that right?
Yes, Chairman members. The drafting code is 012326.
That is what we have. It does. Do we have a motion and a second? Properly motioned, and it does rewrite the bill, correct?
Yes, sir.
And members, without objection, we'll go ahead and vote to adopt amendment 012326. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We are back on the bill as amended. You are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and members. This legislation is focuses on addressing one of the biggest challenges facing our charter schools in regards to their facilities. Charter schools in Tennessee do not receive local capital projects like traditional public schools. Instead, use operating dollars to meet their facility needs. There are school buildings that are currently vacant or underutilized, in some cases abandoned across the state, but often the access to these buildings becomes extremely difficult for charter schools to be able to utilize those buildings. And sometimes it's virtually impossible. Instead, charter schools in Tennessee must finance, locate, build, update, or renovate those facilities in order to have students in those schools. This bill proposes a more explicit definition of vacant or underutilized facilities. It allows charter schools to access vacant and underutilized facilities at low or below fair market value so that these students can utilize those. It also requires LEAs with charter schools to publicly report on the capacity and use of all their buildings, so there's more transparency as it relates to the actual buildings that the county or city does own. And it reiterates the charter schools are public schools and subject to the same tax exemption on that all public schools do that. It also requires LEAs and at least one charter school operates to give charter schools a first right of refusal, which is unique to that, so that if someone wanted to sell a facility, that a charter school, once that property is deemed for sale, that charter school would have the first right to do that. That's a very important part of this bill. With that, I'm happy to answer that description. I'm happy to answer any questions that the members might have.
Thank you, Chairman Williams. Representative Warner, you were recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Williams, for bringing this bill today. Does this bill in any way, does it have to do with anything about condemnations of property?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To kind of follow up on that question, but well, I'll go in my original direction. As an example, there's an elementary school in Knox County in my district. Elementary school that I went to, it was K through 6, 2-story facility, shut down for about 8 to 10 years, and it was repurposed as a pre-K, K3, K4 building. In K3, K4, they can't use the upper floors for educational activities because the kids are so young. In that case, and I discussed this last year, when a different bill was in front of us, that facility would probably be considered underutilized. So, one, how do you address situations like that? And who gets to call it underutilized? And what's the vetting process for it being determined to be underutilized?
Chairman Williams?
That's a good question. Obviously, the bill spells out the definition of what underutilized would be, but that underutilized would be based upon this language as it relates to whether or not, in your instance, a 2-story facility or a single-story facility, it would apply, or how that would be determined. I, quite frankly, am unaware of that. It would be my assumption, though, that if it's a underutilized building because the second floor is not being used, if it was deemed on the list, then there would have to be some kind of provision or upgrade to be able to have a secondary entrance for that school in the event that it was deemed underutilized and put on the list as it relates to possible purchase or utilization.
Representative McKenzie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate you bringing up the list. So it looks like at this point, the persons that will vet that, looks like it's the trying to find it here, the school. It's a state entity that vets that. So that one that concerns me. That someone that may not know the full plan for that school may be in the process of adding it to a list. But even as I dug into the original code that defined what underutilized meant, there's no clear definition of a percentage or a time period that it's been used or not used that gives me a good feeling that we're not going to take over some facilities where the LEA may have plans for it. So that one concerns me. The fact that people outside of the local LEA kind of determines what that looks like. And then there's no clear definition on what underutilized means. So thank you.
Chairman Williams?
Yes, sir. In section 1, it looks as if it does lay out through section A through D. It does lay out that the list prepared by the LEA would show the address of the locations of every school, the total square footage of the school, the capacity or enrollment capacity of that school, and if a building is not used by the LEA for direct academic instruction for students in pre-K through grade 12 or any combination thereof, then the manner in which the school building is used, then it would be determined and what it was being used for as either vacant, administrative storage, or professional development. So it does lay out what their use of, and each LEA would have to determine what's it, and if it was underutilized, then it would have to be determined there as well. If you follow up the next section of the bill, it just says that the vacant property, that the determining factor there is the comptroller. The charter school may petition the comptroller of the Treasury, who is not an independent third party. Obviously, we trust the comptroller to be the money cop in the state, and his office would be responsible for that.
Members, any other questions for our sponsor? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 1191. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Aye. The ayes have it. If you'd like to be recorded as a no,
you were loud enough.
Please let the clerk know. You're on to full education.
Thank you, Chairman and members.
All right, that brings us to item number 5, House Bill 1605 by Representative Bolso. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Properly motion. Representative Bolso, you are recognized on House Bill 1605. And
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I do believe you have an amendment.
Yes,
What is the drafting code on that?
012096.
And do we have a second? Probably motion, members without objection, we'll go ahead and adopt this amendment or vote to adopt this amendment. Those in favor of adopting amendment 012096, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. We are back on your bill as amended. You're recognized. Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill amends the current text of section 49-6-2005. As the code currently reads, every public school building in the state is required to display the United States flag. What this proposed legislation as amended would do would be to add a list of other flags that schools in their discretion could also fly. And it also provides that only those flags that are listed in the bill as amended could be displayed on school property or in the school itself. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I stand ready for questions.
All right. Thank you. Members, we do have some guests that have requested to speak today in opposition of the bill. And without objection, we will go ahead and go out of session so that we can hear their testimony. So without objection, we're going out of session, and we'll bring you up one at a time, and then you'll have 3 minutes, and then we'll open it up to any questions. So the first one we had on our list was Erica Boughton. If you would just come up and make sure that you hit the button to make the red light come on the microphone. And once that's on, just state your name for the record and who you represent or who you're with, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Erica Boughton. I'm a public school mom of 3 kids, and I just wanted to walk through why I believe this bill is a very bad idea. First, this is a fairly blatant violation of the First Amendment right to free speech and free exercise. In a 2022 Supreme Court case, Kennedy versus Bremerton School District, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Kennedy, who sued the district for forbidding him from praying on a high school football field. The court stated, and I quote, "Learning how to tolerate speech of all kinds is a part of learning how to live in a pluralistic society, a trait of character essential to a tolerant citizenry," end quote. They ruled that forbidding Kennedy from doing so is a violation of free speech and free exercise. So there's clear and recent judicial precedent opposing what this bill is trying to do. Second, there's no imminent danger or problem that stems from displaying a piece of nylon. The hypocrisy is extremely difficult to reconcile, given that this legislative body has repeatedly sent the message that banning items, even deadly ones such as guns, from schools and public places is a violation of the Constitution. So how are we as parents who want to protect our children supposed to accept that lawmakers feel more threatened by a piece of fabric than an automatic rifle? Third, the sponsor of this bill is in violation of the 113th General Assembly Rules of Order. Mr. Bolso has a personal conflict of interest. He works with Moms for Liberty, mothers who have directly requested that this bill be brought, and members from this group have confirmed this publicly. Mr. Bolso represents this same group of women on a lawsuit currently filed against the Williamson County School Board. This is a blatant conflict of interest. These women have him on legal retainer, and he stands to profit financially from this arrangement. Finally, a flag has no power to change a person's viewpoint or deeply held beliefs. The waving of a French flag will not make a person French. However, it will make a French person feel welcomed. A flag can send the message to children who may otherwise feel alone or bullied or not tolerated that they are accepted, that they are in a safe space. And this is deeply critical right now as certain children's identities have been politicized and public figures have made it okay to stigmatize marginalized groups. These kids need to feel safe and loved. and they need that to thrive in school. Public schools, by definition, are public. Everyone's allowed, everyone belongs, everyone's included.
Thank you. We will open it up for any questions if there's any questions for our witness. Representative McKenzie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question for the witness, but since we're out of session and this has been a emerging issue, that there's a conflict that may violate the rules or the law, can we have legal and just go ahead and deal with that particular piece? Because it does seem to have a pretty clear line, I would say, to the language of this bill. So could we have legal chime in on where we're on that?
If you could just state the question one more time, and then we'll have legal make sure that they say their name and who they represent, and he'll have an answer for
Okay, thank you. My question is, the language of this bill clearly says that parents representing the school-age kids not going to that school have the right to bring litigation forward for inappropriate books in their estimation. There's a lawsuit that the bill sponsor is the lawyer on, that clearly says a parent, the named parent, does not go to the school in question, but the lawsuit is requesting that books be banned from a particular school. So to me, there's a direct line. And my question to you is that a conflict of the House rules, and or is it a conflict of the law?
I believe it will have to go to the clerk's office for that particular parliamentary inquiry. Chairman Watt?
Maybe aren't we on bill number 1605? Are you discussing bill 6? Or am I in there?
Mm-hmm.
We're on the one on flags?
Correct.
Okay, it sounded like your last comment was talking about the next
What?
one.
Good point.
Representative McKenzie?
Thank you. Similar point, but I've gotten an answer. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for our witness? Seeing none, thank you. We'll be moving to Rebecca Dryden. Is that correct? Just please, same thing. Make sure you state your name and who you're with.
Yeah, my name is Becca Dryden. I have 2 children in public school, and I'm here to ask you to vote against this bill, which would limit a teacher's ability to display a pride flag anywhere in their classroom. When I walk into a classroom and see a pride flag, it tells me one thing: not that the teacher has a nefarious gay agenda, but that LGBT students are safe and welcome in this classroom. Flags are symbols. A pride flag is nothing more than a symbol of acceptance and inclusion. It is not intended to be divisive. Acceptance and inclusion should not be divisive. This bill is government overreach that does nothing to improve the learning environment or student outcomes. I could say more, a lot more, but I would rather you hear from a teacher who couldn't be here to testify because of after-school tutoring, but wanted me to share these words with you. From this teacher: I'm a proud veteran educator in MNPS. I have taught kindergarten for 8 years, and as any lower elementary teacher will tell you, there is not much that scares us. But hearing that this bill is on the table terrifies me. A teacher is required to support every student academically, socially, and emotionally, no matter what. This bill attempts to directly inhibit this by targeting some of our most vulnerable students in what might be their safest space. If my career has taught me anything, it's that students learn best when they feel loved, supported, and seen. Our LGBTQIA students hear so many voices screaming negativity and hatred in the world. But by seeing a pride flag displayed in their classroom, those voices are quieted for just a bit. Tell me, why is that a problem? Students are excited to go to a classroom where they feel supported, so school attendance increases and in turn, learning increases. Why is that a problem? Students who have at least one supportive adult in their lives are much more likely to stay alive despite setbacks, big or small. Again, I ask you, why is that a problem? I find it unsettling that our politicians are putting energy into a bill banning flags meant to make students feel accepted and loved while doing nothing about students dying from gun violence in our schools and our community. Our leaders are worried about test scores and attendance, but yet attempt to pass bills restricting ways educators can support their students and help ensure they show up and give their best every day. I have a pride flag in my classroom. My pride flag symbolizes that my classroom is a safe space to be your authentic self to everyone who enters, whether it is a student or a grown-up. If my flag makes one student feel safer, more supported, or more loved, then it's done its job. As simple as that. My question remains, what harm does a pride flag cause in my classroom? Because I honestly can't come up with one thing. The better question is, what incredible good can come from a pride flag in a classroom? Because that list is endless. Please reconsider this bill. It will be detrimental to our students and families who call our school a safe home away from home. Sincerely, a teacher and an active voter.
All right, members, any questions for our witness? All right, seeing none. Oh, Chairman Watt.
Thank you, Chairman. I really don't want to bring this up, but I'm going to anyway because I like this. I'm not taking a position on this one way or the other because I can see both sides so well. So I'm here to listen.
Sure.
Because these can be emotional issues. Depends on where you come down on the social spectrum and all that kind of stuff, right? And so I understand your comments, but help me to understand, and hope everyone understands what I'm asking. But at the same time in our history, if someone wanted to display, say, the Confederate flag in the classroom, are we open to that also of all? Because you see what I'm saying? I'm not
I do.
advocating anything. I'm asking a question for us to consider when we're having issues like this.
So I think that's a good question. And I think you have to consider, like I said, flags are symbols and what the symbol of that particular flag is meant to convey. If it is a maritime flag, it's conveying a specific maritime symbol. I don't know any of them, but for example, a pride flag is, if people want to twist it, they can, but the point of a pride flag, if you look at its history, if you look at the beginning of pride flags, why they were created, the history of what role they have served in society, it is not a separatist stance. It is not related to war. It is not related to slavery. So I think I understand the question, and I think it is an important, like, kind of devil's advocate position to take. But I think looking into the actual history and intention behind each flag is a really important part of that discussion, which, I don't have all of that information right in front of me, but I think all of us know at least a little bit about the history of the Confederate flag. And I will say grew up in East Tennessee. They're everywhere. No one, I haven't seen anyone really try that hard to get rid of them.
But we don't allow them in the classroom because we have enough. Yeah, I'm not defending either thing.
Sure.
I'm not defending. I'm
They
bringing up a point. I want us. We're thinking about
Yes,
this.
absolutely. And I think it's a very valid question. And I think there is an answer that helps us see pretty clearly why they're very different and why one is a symbol of division, literally separating secession of our country and war, and one is a symbol of unity and inclusion for marginalized voices and people.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Watt. No other questions for Representative Warner?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You quoted a teacher that couldn't be here. Could we get
Correct.
that teacher's name and all for the record?
She asked not to be named. I think she, as a lot of other teachers, have concerns. I would be willing to speak privately off the record. She asked me not to.
I think it's committee rules. If you're going to speak in committee, you got to give your name and what organization you're with.
Oh,
Well-
my name is Becca Dryden. I'm just a parent. I said that. The teacher is a Metro Nashville Public School teacher, a kindergarten teacher. That was identified in this. So it is a real testimony. It's my child's teacher who has a pride flag and who's accepting and wonderful and has helped children achieve a lot.
Representative Warner, we'll find out to your question if you have to have names associated.
And if
with
that's
who's
true,
going.
I feel confident that she feels strongly enough that she would be willing to provide that, but I was unaware that, and I don't feel comfortable putting that out publicly in this forum without her approval.
We understand.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
We have, thank you. We have one other guest that's here that's on the list, Joe Zikafus, if I've pronounced that correctly. There's two Joes. Maybe not. We also had one other, but I think that they said that Joe Wicks did not make it due to I know y'all are going to find this shocking, a pothole on the interstate. I know. Be careful out there. I believe that that's it for what we had on our list then. So without objection, members, we will go back into session. And we are back on item number 5, House Bill 1605. Representative Bolso, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just give a reaction to some of the comments that we just heard, because none of these arguments, when you look at them, actually withstand the force of logic. First, this issue about the First Amendment, the bill as drafted actually provides that it is to be interpreted in accordance with the First Amendment, and also obviously in accordance with Section 19 of Article 1 of our state constitution. So there can be no constitutional challenge to this bill as written, because it only applies to the extent that the Tennessee and federal constitutions allow. There's this next comment that there's no imminent danger. That's not actually an argument that has merit, because danger is not the problem. The problem is that parents have a right to send their children to public schools without those children being indoctrinated by those who want.
Listen, members, we had some witnesses up here that I'm sure that some people disagreed with up here, but we showed respect. We didn't hiss. We didn't snap at them while they were doing their speeches. We asked just for the same respect up here and please respect the members' time to have this dialogue. If you do not want to do that, we can take a recess and remove everybody, which I do not want to do, and I've never had to do. But let's please have respect both ways. Representative Balso, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, parents have a right to raise their kids with the values that they want to raise them with. And this bill has its origin in parents not being comfortable with the values represented by these flags that some teachers and counselors are posting in schools, not just all over my county in Williamson, but all across the state. And I've literally heard from hundreds, if not thousands, of parents across the state in support of this bill, because they are tired of a set of values that they don't believe in trying to be foisted on them and their children. You know, and some legislation is about a who, you know, some is about a what or a when. This is a bill about a where. We can have political debates, and we do obviously every day here in this chamber, but an elementary school is no place for a political debate. Kids go to school to learn, not to be indoctrinated. And in my view, parents have a right to expect that they can send their kids to a public school without values represented by a pride flag or any other similar political flag being used to try to influence the children. Next, there was this statement about a conflict. None of the facts that Ms. Bowden testified to are accurate, so I'll leave it there. With regard to Ms. Dryden's testimony, I mean, she talks about the pride flag as being inclusive. Well, that's also not correct. In fact, it's one of the most exclusive symbols in our polity today. You know, when you look at the pride flag and what it represents, there's no denying the fact that it does represent a set of values. And one may agree or disagree with those values, but they exist. I mean, Mr. Chairman, you'll recall that in 2015, our Supreme Court in Obergefell versus Hodges flattened laws across all 50 states that were passed by bodies just like this one to protect traditional marriage. In a one fell swoop, a 5-4 majority of our Supreme Court elevated what they call same-sex marriage to the same status of traditional marriage. That pride flag stands for that value. It's not a value that I share. It's not a value that most parents share. It's not a value that more than 5 million Tennesseans share. Also, that flag represents the T. The T is transgender rights. And we, last year in the first session of the 113th General Assembly, did all we could to protect girls' athletics. And we got an amazing amount of hate mail and threats and other very exclusive types of comments from this inclusive group of folks who support this flag, because they continue to try to deny the fundamental truths about the body and sexuality. That flag represents transgender rights. It represents a value that would allow a biological male to compete against girls in middle school and high school athletics. Once again, we can debate whether or not those values are correct or not, but there's no debating the fact that one should not use an elementary schoolroom and put a flag that represents a set of values that most of the parents disagree with.
All right, Representative Bolzo, I gave you a little bit of leeway there because we the most of this. Some of this needed to be directed towards questions during the out of session portion. Ma'am, I'm sorry, we don't have a running dialogue, but we do need to be back on the bill. So if you have any comments directed about your bill, or we open up questions for your bill, but we need to stay on the bill at this point.
Sure. Those are my comments on the bill, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Chairman Watt.
Thank you. My question is, in general, when we're talking about, can we give us a definition? And when we say display, is there a technical term on display? What does that mean?
Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman White, for the question. Interestingly, the statute that's at issue, 49-6-2005, has been in place since 1925. So we're dealing with a word that has been used in Tennessee code without any difficulty for a period of about 100 years. And one traditional rule of statutory construction is that words are given what's called their plain and ordinary meaning. And so in this case, the word display means in the statute what it means in ordinary life. To display something is to put it out for public view, to have it exhibited. And in this particular case, that's been true of the United States flag under the statute for the last 100 years. And that would also be true for any other flags that any LEAs or public charter schools would display anywhere in the school or on the school grounds.
Chairman Watt, follow up.
Well, the reason I'm asking is, in the language of the bill, if I'm a geography teacher, can I display, does the language of the bill allow me to display all the country flags in my geography class? Or does this bill eliminate that?
Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman White, it does allow a geography teacher to use any type of a geographical flag as part of a class. This bill only addresses display in the sense that one would display a United States flag on a flagpole or on a standard or something of that nature.
Representative Bolso, I know we did talk earlier about a possible amendment that could be forthcoming next week. I know that we don't take untimely filed amendments. We haven't in this committee. Would you still be open to working with us on a possible amendment for next week and rolling it 1 week at this time?
The short answer, Mr. Chairman, is yes. As I understand the concern, some school boards may want to receive some type of notice from a parent before a parent might haul off and sue a school board who may be in violation of the statute. And that actually would fit very nicely in Section C3 of the bill. Right now, the bill provides that a parent or a guardian of a student who's enrolled has standing to file a civil action. We could actually amend that provision to require that a parent provide, for example, 10 days written notice to a school board to remove a flag that's been posted in violation of the statute before a parent or a guardian could file a legal action.
Okay.
And I'm happy to delay the vote on this for 1 week to allow us to insert that language into section C3.
All right, members, we're going to need a motion to make sure that we have, if you'd like to have a clean bill, since we have an amendment that we adopted earlier, we need a motion from the prevailing side to then withdraw the current amendment that we're on, so that we would have a clean amendment going forward next week. If that's not something that the committee wants to do, then we can work off of this, and he can add an amendment to it next week. Just wanted to put that option out there. All right, then without objection, we are going to roll this. Oh, Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this may be a parliamentary inquiry or personal purpose, but folks have gotten, as you say, travel pretty dangerous highways. And we kind of heard what that amendment would do. And it doesn't really get to the substantive issue of what this bill is doing and saying. So I was wondering if we could still have a dialogue on the basic merits or lack of merits of this particular piece of legislation before we roll it. Just an inquiry.
Thank you for the question. I think we'll be able to have that discussion next week once we have the bill in its final form, or the form that it would be voted on to go on to full. Representative Warner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will there be any testimony allowed next week?
It would be after their witness cards are turned in. If it's people that have already testified, then we probably wouldn't. If it was somebody new or the person that didn't make it this time, that we would consider that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, without objection, we will be rolling House Bill 1605 1 week. That brings us to item number 6, House Bill 1632 by Representative Bolso. Properly motion, Representative Bolso, you're recognized on House Bill 1632.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, this is a bill that simply adds a provision regarding legal standing to the Age Appropriate Materials Act of 2022, which this body passed in the 112th General Assembly. You may recall that as part of the Age Appropriate Materials Act, a school board or local LEA is required to do 3 things. One, each LEA has to adopt a written procedure to develop school libraries. Second, each LEA has to adopt a written procedure with regard to reviewing materials in school libraries. And then 3, each LEA has to adopt a procedure to handle complaints about materials in a school library. The act is passed in 2022, however, did not have an express provision with regard to who should or should not be able to enforce it. And what this bill that's before us today, HB 1632 does is it makes it clear that parents have a legal right if there has been a violation of the Age Appropriate Materials Act to bring a civil action in a competent court, in a chancery court of competent jurisdiction, in order to make sure that the law that this body passed is in fact followed. And that is a summary of the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that explanation. Any questions for our sponsor? Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to re-ask my question, I guess, a more concise manner. As the sponsor laid out, the sponsor has a lawsuit, which he's actively either being paid a pro bono on this particular case. Is this against the law? I'll ask legal we could go out of session. Is this against the law? Not necessarily the clerk or,
Yeah, again, that's going to be a question for the clerk. And so what we're going to do is we'll take a 5-minute, we'll take a brief recess and we'll get that question answered for you. And then we'll reconvene in a few minutes. We stand at recess. All right, welcome back. We'll call K-12 Education Committee back into session. Just a quick summary here. After consulting with the clerk's office, wanted to give you this. Since there is no statement of interest violation, then there is no code of ethics violation or house rule violation. So wanted to relay that message there. Representative McKenzie, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the sponsor, as I look at the language, it says if a parent of a child who attends or is eligible to attend a school operated by an LEA, what's the harm to a parent or a child whose child is of age in the third, he's 8 years old, she's 9 years old? What's the harm, but doesn't go to public school or anything? What's the harm to that child? And why would that be in this particular language?
And Representative Bolso, just before I go to you, I just wanted to give us everybody a reset for that, that as we join back in, we're on House Bill 1632. Representative Bolso, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative McKenzie, for that question. The answer is simply this, that a parent has a right to send a child to a public school that does not have age-appropriate material in the school library. And so very frequently, a parent may not enroll a child in a public school because of the presence of inappropriate materials. The bill as written would give the parent the ability to require that the inappropriate materials be removed from the school library so the parent could then send the child to the school. That is the logic behind having standing apply not just to a parent of an enrolled child, but a parent of a child who would be enrolled once the inappropriate materials are removed from the school libraries.
Representative McKenzie.
Just last question to the sponsor. Can't you see that although it'll be extremely beneficial to your profession and your colleagues, that this bill is going to increase our state exposure, the amount of lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits, let's put it there, not legitimate lawsuits, but frivolous lawsuits that are going to be brought across these 95 counties and countless LEAs based on people that are disinterested from public education? Can't you see that this is going to just run up the cost and the already strapped potentially strapped time in our government?
Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative McKenzie, the fact of the matter is that what you're saying is demonstrably not true for two reasons. First, when you look at the cases that have been filed on the Age Appropriate Materials Act from the day it was filed until right now, you cannot find one frivolous case. Second, this language here does not change existing law. The way the law is right now in Tennessee is that if you are a parent, you have standing to file a case for a violation of the Age Appropriate Materials Act. That is because our Supreme Court, in many cases, and perhaps most recently, in Metropolitan Board of Education versus Tennessee Board of Education, decided in 2022, recognized that you have a party has standing to file a lawsuit if you can demonstrate three things. One, a distinct and palpable injury. Two, that the injury was caused by the allegedly wrongful conduct. And three, the court's in a position to grant relief to remedy the injury. Courts have already found that under that standard, parents have a right to file an action under the Age Appropriate Materials Act. What this language simply does is it makes it express that parents have a right to file a case to avoid litigation over the issue. So actually, it's going to reduce costs to private litigants and to the state, because no longer will any Board of Education across the state even be able to argue that a parent lacks standing to bring the case. It'll be clear here in the statute.
Chairman Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Bolso, my question is this not so much the intent, is the language, and maybe I don't have the complete bill draft before me. My question is this, Section 1, Item F, a parent of a child who attends or who is eligible to attend a school operated by LEA, which means my question is, even if the child is not going to that particular school, of the parent's child is not going to school, is it open up where anybody in that district, if they have a complaint against that particular school, is it open to them? And my question is this, we put in place a law last year with the administrative complaint process for age appropriate books. Where in the language does it talk about where that complaint process has to be exhausted before, say, a lawsuit could be put in place? That's question one. And question two is, my concern is if you've got, let's say, a homeschool parent who just hears about something, can they bring a lawsuit against a particular school in that district, even though their child is not in that school?
Chairman, Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman White, for the question. Let me respond to both parts of it. I mean, first, the reason that it's important to have a parent who's eligible to send a child to school to have standing is that we want parents to be free to send their children to public schools free of any fear that there's going to be age inappropriate materials in the library. And what this language does is it protects the rights not only of parents that have children enrolled, but of parents who want to enroll their children, but cannot unless and until the age inappropriate materials are removed from the library. And then second, Chairman White, I'll point out that courts have already held that both parents with enrolled children and parents who have children who are eligible to be enrolled have standing to bring a case under the Age Appropriate Materials Act. This language does not in any way expand who can file a case under the Age Appropriate Materials Act. It simply provides express language so that the issue can no longer even be a topic of debate.
Chairman Watt.
Thank you. I'm just struggling a little bit. And we've had this conversation before, but I think it's worthy to keep hashing it out if we're going to go down these roads. And I understand your concept. I'm not in disagreement. But if I say school A in District A, and someone has trouble with the book To Kill a Mockingbird, which I'm using as an example because I've heard that before. Can anyone bring a suit against that particular school, that district, because of what's the process you go through where we're not tied up in lawsuits spending money over things or people's opinion more than something that's concrete?
Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The short answer, Chairman White, is that this language does not open up the courthouse door to anyone who is a resident of a county or simply a taxpayer. It obviously provides that you have to be a parent of a child who's enrolled or a parent of a child who's eligible to enroll. That does not in any way expand beyond the permissible decisions that we have from our Supreme Court as to who can actually bring a case to vindicate the statute. If in fact a taxpayer, for example, were simply to file a case, even after this bill is passed, if it is passed, a court would have to go through an analysis as to whether a county taxpayer has the authority to enforce the Age Appropriate Materials Act. And a court might very well find that a taxpayer can, but that court would go through that test that I mentioned a moment ago, that three-part test. Does a taxpayer have a distinct and palpable injury? Has the taxpayer demonstrated that the injury was caused by the challenged conduct? And three, is the court in a position to give relief for the injury that's been alleged? And if a court found that a taxpayer met all those three criteria, the taxpayer could go forward. So this language here, contrary to some of the sentiment, is something that actually will reduce cost. It does not in any way expand under current law who can file a case. It simply eliminates litigation over the question of whether parents have the right to enforce the Age Appropriate Materials Act. And then finally, Chairman White, with regard to your question about exhausting administrative remedies, I mean, I can point out that those requirements of exhaustion are implicit in the statute. When you look at section 49-6-3803C, it's clear that it's only once a LEA or a charter school receives a complaint from a parent or from some other qualified person and does not reach a resolution that is consistent with the complaint, that a parent could then file a case. So there is already embedded in the statute a process that requires a parent to go through the administrative process before filing a case.
Just one last.
All right, I will remind our members that our guests, there's no live streaming or recording from the audience. Chairman Watt, you're
Yeah.
recognized.
And thank you, Representative Bosso, for those comments. And I'm totally supportive of the parental rights. I'm just saying, of course, I'm at the will of the committee. If this were to move on to full committee, I would like to see maybe a little bit more restrictive language to spell out what we're saying. Anyway, so.
Chairman Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor and Mr. Chairman and Mr. Sponsor. With all due respect, I'm going to kind of give some scenarios to ask questions so I can make sure I'm understanding. Sometimes I have trouble translating lawyer language, so help me out here. And we've had this discussion. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Scenario of a second grader brings a library book home. Parent sees it, looks at it, says, this stuff in this book is inappropriate. They don't have grounds. Am I correct in saying they don't have grounds to bring a lawsuit at that point? Yes or no?
Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the answer is yes, they do not have a right to bring a case at that point.
Chairman Hurt.
Just to follow up, to take that a few steps, the legislation that we passed, which we're not debating today, we're just debating the next step for that, would take that scenario to the parent takes the book to the principal. If at that point the principal says, we'll look into it, and then puts it back on the shelf, I understand at that point there will be an opportunity for the lawsuit because that is part of the process we laid out. So I guess what I'm saying is if an LEA follows the process that we laid out, are they at risk of being sued under your addition to this legislation?
Representative Bolso.
Let me answer the question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me answer the question this way, Chairman Hurt.
Chairman, I can't hear this man down here.
We'll be out of we'll be going to recess for a couple of minutes.
This is fascism. I'll happily fuck you, Bolson. Fuck you, Hanson.
The name is Haston, Haston. We still have about 1 more minute until we can go back into session. So we will be in recess. This is Representative Haston signing off for 1 more minute. All right, our 2-minute recess is up, so we will be back in session. And we are on House Bill 1632. Chairman Hurt, did you have a follow-up, or did you have your question answered? All right, Representative Bolso, I'll let you continue, and then we'll go back to Chairman White, and then go to Representative Warner.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman Hurt, I think the answer to that question would be no, that if in fact the LEA has adopted a procedure to handle complaints and it follows that procedure, that it's adopted pursuant to the Age Appropriate Materials Act, there would be no basis for a parent to sue the LEA for violation of the act.
Chairman Hurt, follow up.
Thank you for that. And this is just my last comment. So basically, the reason for this legislation is because there are LEAs that are not following the process that we laid out in statute in 2022. That's the reason for this. Thank you.
Representative Warner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I called the previous question.
Question has been called, members. Without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 1632. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. Ayes have it on to full education. All right, that brings us to item number 7, House Bill 1697 by Representative Stevens.
Motion. Second.
Properly motioned. Representative Stevens, you are recognized on House Bill 1697.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill came from our Rutherford County School Board at a meeting that Chairman White attended in Murfreesboro late this summer. And as you know, one of the ways that students can make up their learning loss if they have a poor reading score in their 3rd grade TCAP test is with these various types of camps. And at the beginning of the camp and the end of the camp, they're supposed to take a benchmark assessment. What this bill does is it eliminates the first one on the first day of the camp. And so to get to that point, they've taken the TCAP test. They've taken it again to see if they can continue on. And then when they go to a learning camp, they take an assessment on the first day, and then they take an assessment on the last day. So you're taking 4 different tests in a period of a month or two. And our teacher said that that first test at the learning camp was a wasted day that they could have been using for instruction. And so the purpose of the bill is to eliminate that first test at the learning camp so that they can use it for instruction instead of another test.
All right, thank you for that explanation. Representative McKenzie, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, as we talked about when we passed this piece of legislation, which I supported, is we got to have measures. We got to take data. We got to make sure we understand where people are. And we also talked about, we're talking about children. We're talking about 3rd graders who are taking their first kind of standardized test that counts. And then the last thing is, this is a big deal. If Sally or Joe doesn't pass that test, he or she will have some consequences that go on beyond that summer reading institute count. So my question or my concern is, you get better with repetition. You get better as you do something, and we clearly say we're not testing our kindergarten. We actually got I think they want to start build a test 1st graders, but we're not testing our Ks, our 1s, and our 2s with this standardized type testing. So yes, they took it in the spring. They're 8, may have had a bad day, may not have slept that day, may have a bad cold, had COVID, onset of COVID that they didn't realize. There's reasons and measures that things might have not have been right. But more importantly, my question to you is, why not take this? It's 4 hours. It's a test. It's half a day. They're all summer. I love my teachers, but if they, if that one day just hindered them, it to me, it would bother me. But why not take something at the beginning of it and then at the end of it and see what the progress, see what the slope looks like? We're testing on the same materials to see if they're able and capable of being proficient readers. Why not take the pretest for the data?
Representative Stevens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of the benchmark assessments was to see if the learning camp was successful. And there's all kinds of other ways that they can capture that data. They can look at the TCAP score of next year. It's just unnecessary test. The reason that our school system did the test and the reason the Department of Education told them they had to give the test was because it's in the statute. And so they wanted to see if the camps were successful. I personally went and visited some. They were very successful. The students were engaged. The teachers that were there were thriving with the students. So I'm not sure if we need to take that first test. The reason for taking it wasn't so that the students could get experience in taking the test again. It was to try to collect data for the end of the summer camp to see if the students progressed. So they can look at the first TCAP score, the second TCAP score, and compare that data with the test at the end of the learning camp.
Representative McKenzie, follow up.
Thank you. You know, you weren't on the legislature in the legislature at the time, and I was brand new. But we spent a lot of time with Chairman here going through this. We put a lot of energy, and we were intentional about what we needed to see and how we needed to measure. You're right. It's not just data. It's data. It's valuable data. It may not mean anything for 2/3, 90%, but for that one kid that did have a bad day, that just as light bulbs come on. Oh, this is how you take a test. Okay. This bill doesn't even measure. You pulled one school system out and brought it. What happened statewide? What was like I said, I want to see the data. What was there from the TCAP, the first TCAP to the second one? Was there a decrease at this pretest? Was there increase at this pretest? We're getting rid of something. We spent countless hours saying we gotta test these students. We gotta get them where they need to be. You're taking out a valuable piece of information. What happened between the TCAP, the TCAP test, and the start of the summer bridge program? We won't know unless we have a score. It's not ruining the camp. As you said, it was a great camp. It was a great camp with the pretest. So, and again, we spent a lot of time on this. We spent a lot of time on this, and we're going to get rid of it year one. We're going to get rid of it before we can even determine what it says. Please think about this, not on a granular level for the one school that you visited or that one teacher that doesn't think it's necessary. That's data, and we've not even looked at that data. What if there was an average of a 2-point increase between the last TCAP and the pretest? We don't know that. If it was, pretest is a great thing. We don't have that information. I don't see that information here. No one from the Department of Education has brought that information. So again, please reconsider this.
Chairman Hurt. Chairman Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, the legislation is suggesting that we remove the requirement. Does it prevent a school system from having some sort of pretest if they want to administer it?
Representative Stevens.
I suppose if they wanted to give a test that they would be allowed to do that, but it eliminates the requirement to do it.
Chairman Watt.
Yeah, Representative McKenzie is making some really good points because this is what we talked about. But I think what we're kind of missing here, until I went down and met with the school board, I believe it was, in Rutherford County, the child is already coming out. They're in summer school because of lack of proficiency. So they've come out. We already know where they stand. They're below where they should be. So if you just go ahead and give a test, you're just kind of confirming where they are. Now, if they happen to do better on that test, they're still going through summer school. They're already signed up for it. So it's really what they're telling us is you're coming out of school for the year. You're already below proficiency. You're signed up for summer school. Let's just test you at the end to make sure that you have improved. Is there really that need for that test when you already kind of know where they are 2 or 3 weeks earlier? Does that make sense to you?
Representative Stevens, any follow-up?
No.
No further questions for our sponsor. Without objection. Without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 1697. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. It's on to full education. Brings us to item number Item number 9, House Bill 1700 by Representative Slater. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Properly motion. Representative Slater, you are recognized on House Bill 1700.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. This is a school safety bill. Currently, it is against the law for any unauthorized person to enter a school bus. This doesn't change that law at all. What it does is 3 things. It requires districts to post signage on the bus that it's against the law for unauthorized persons to come onto the bus. It also alerts an individual to how they can contact the transportation office or the district. And then thirdly, and probably most importantly, it requires, as part of the existing 4-hour training for bus drivers every year, that this law and understanding of this law be part of that training. And with that explanation, I stand ready for questions.
Thank you for that. Members, any questions for our sponsor? Representative Ritchie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, sponsor, for this bill. I took a look over on the fiscal note, and it shows not significant. Yet, if we're putting on there to where they shall post a notice on every school bus, I don't know how many school buses we have across the state of Tennessee, but I don't understand how that might be. And I know that you didn't come up with that fiscal note. That's just my only concern is that seems very misleading that it's going to have a not significant when there's a lot of school buses that are going to have a placard posted on them. So it was more of a statement on what doesn't make sense in there to me. But I guess the question, do you know how many school buses this is going to impact?
Representative Slater.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It will impact every school bus. There are several districts that are already doing this. This came from law enforcement and school transportation in my county. When I checked with other counties, there are counties that are doing it. When I checked with a county that does not do this, they were very much in favor of it. I can speak to the fiscal note, and that is there is no state expenditure for this. What you'll notice is not in the bill. We don't prescribe what this sign looks like. It could be as easy as something being run off in a copy machine. That's why it comes back as not significant, but there is no state expenditure for this.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 1700. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed, say no. Ayes have it. You're on full education. That brings us to item number 10, House Bill 1785 by Representative Martin. Do I have a motion? Motion. Properly motion. Representative Martin, you're recognized on House Bill 1785.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This is a bill that's brought to me by the Comptroller Office, and it's regarding internal school fund manual. This bill makes government work better by streamlining the process to prepare the internal school funds manual. Currently, the Department of Education, with the assistance of the Comptroller Office, prepares the internal school funds manual for local school system, and the law requires the Comptroller's Office and the Department of Finance and Administration to approve the manual. F&A rarely does this, and this makes a change so that the manual and is unnecessary in the approval process. I would like to think of it when you have a skilled carpenter, Mr. Chairman, who knows how to hit a nail and drive it all the way through. You don't need to spend time, money, and effort on having another carpenter come behind him and hit the nail again. So this is going to save taxpayers money and streamline our government.
Thank you for that. Members, any questions for our sponsor? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 1785. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. You're on the full education. That brings us to item number 11, House Bill 1797 by Representative Carringer. Do I have a motion? Motion. Properly motion. Representative Carringer, you are recognized on House Bill 1797.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1797 is what this bill does is allows a student member of the State Board of Education to be counted as present for any time the student misses school for official state board business, such as board meetings and workshops.
Thank you for that, Representative Carringer. Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing this bill. It's vitally important that we get our students engaged at the earliest possible level, especially in matters like education. 2 quick questions. You may not have the answer to them. How many students are on the state board? And how many, roughly how many hours, how many days, I guess, because they got to come to Nashville, it'd be days on the year with what we're looking at.
President Carringer, we do have someone down. If, without objection, we will go out of session and bring Nathan James up and just have him state his name and who he represents for the record. We are out of session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm Nathan James with the State Board of Education. We have one student member, and so I don't know, you've got 4 quarterly meetings. We do days in the district at different places, and it's not that this has necessarily been a problem in the past. It's just we want to make sure they're totally protected.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I said, this is a great program. I'd like to see it expanded, maybe 1 per grand division or something like that. Just so, I don't know how much, I know there's a cost associated, but this is a great program. We do it at the Knox County School Board, has a student member. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for our guest? All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Objection, we'll go back into session. Representative Carringer, you renew your motion?
And with that, I will renew my motion.
All right, without objection, we will be voting on House Bill 1797. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. You're on to full education.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Members, I believe that gets us through smoothly to the last item on our calendar today. Any other comments? All right. All right. We have a motion. Second. We are adjourned.